Bernice Abbott was an American photographer who is well known for her portraits of 20th century cultural figures, New York City photographs of architecture, and urban design of the 1930s. After visiting New York City from Paris in 1929, Abbott realized its photographic potential. She soon moved to the city and began to document its transformation into a modern metropolis over the next decade. Abbott soon became a central figure in the photographic communities of both New York City and Paris. Using a large format camera, Abbott was able to capture many photographs of the city with extreme attention to detail and precision. Her work now provides a sort of documentation for the many of the destroyed neighborhoods and buildings in the city. This photo is especially beautiful because of the bright lights and of the contrast with the dark buildings, and it really makes the scene look magical. The way this photo was taken makes it look very futuristic, even though it was taken in 1932. In 1937, Abbott had her first exhibition in New York called Changing New York. She wanted to have a broad collection of photographs that, when together, suggest an important interaction between three aspects of urban life: the diverse people of the city, the places they live, work, and play, and their daily activities. This photo shows a huge contrast between the older part of the city in the foreground and the newer part of the city in the background. The foreground almost transports the viewer back in time to an older era, while the distant background transports the viewer to a time sometime in the future. And Abbott is able to convey this contrast by showing the two very different styles of architecture in the image. Abbott often chose subjects that showed a great contrast between old and new. She often avoided choosing subjects just solely based off of their appearances. In this image, Abbott chose to photograph an alley that was in an older architectural style, with the newer skyrise building in the center of the image in the distance. This picture also demonstrates how Abbott was able to show the contrast between the old and the new New York in her project Changing New York. It also shows how the skyrise is towering over the older neighborhood, showing how the tone of the city was changing in favor of the newer architecture. Here is another one of Abbott's more famous images of sunlight streaming in the windows of the Grand Central Station. Even though this image is in black and white, the viewer can see the contrast of the sunlight streaming in and the dark shadows of the building, which creates a warm feeling to this image. The windows also highlight the beautiful architecture of this train station, and the high perspective shows angles people would not normally see, which makes this image very unique and creative. I chose Bernice Abbott for this project because her work shows the change in architecture that took place during the 20th century by taking many different pictures documenting the contrast of the old and new parts of the city. Her work is aesthetically evaluative because she uses a contrast between light and dark and different perspectives in order to get a specific result. Her images of skyrises and 20th century architecture still have a futuristic feel to them to this day, which shows her skills as a photographer. Her photographs documenting the change of New York into a modern metropolis can be considered ethically evaluative as well, because they are able to accurately document the change that took place in the city and to show the viewers a new future of the people of New York. Abbott is one of the most influential photographers of the 20th century, and her work continues to inspire many people to this day. Black and white negatives made it into the Museum of the City of New York and lots of other museums and galleries around the world. Her work has shown how photography can let us see the beauty of societal change and how innovative great photographers can be.